Hello, welcome to All Things Odd. My name is Dr. Hannah Galloway.
And I'm Mary Kate.
And today we are going to do a research spotlight, which everyone knows is my favorite. But first, before we get there, we are going to show you our YouTube. So if you go to YouTube, you can search for our business, and then you can see all these fun thumbnail images that we might get too excited about. But it's really the coolest way to look at our videos. We're getting more subscribers all the time. And so, yes, you can go to YouTube and subscribe, and that way you'll know when we have new episodes. It is always a Thursday at 12:30, but we don't get around to it every single week. And so it's not necessarily every week, but you'll get notifications if you subscribe. And so she's going to take that down. So today we're going to talk about research, which I love. And not too many weeks ago, we talked about the ACHIEVE study, which is a new study that was done. And the part that we've talked about is mostly focused on hearing, but they're going to look at other components of healthy aging as well. And so we have the website that we can pull up here.
And it looks like they've added some more results and like tables and stuff since we did our last video. So definitely some new information on there.
So Dr. Phelps is going to bring that up, but we will link this. So it's achievestudy.org. You can go to the website and there's a lot of different like blurbs of data, little things you can read. There's different arms of the study. Some was looking at physical fitness. Some was looking at mental health. I know the hearing results were released. I don't know where we're at and all the other things, but the reason we are bringing this up is because there's been kind of a lot of headlines lately, especially on our feeds, just because of, Audiology, that there was a study that was looking at the link between hearing loss and, possible cognitive decline and dementia. And the study was redacted. And what that means is that somebody found something wrong with the study and so decided to take it away. That is not this study. And the study that you're looking at right now, the ACHIEVE study, is sort of the gold standard. It's the new study. It has a lot more participants. It's over a longer time period. This is what we're looking at, and this has certainly not been redacted. So there were studies in the Lancet looking at dementia and hearing loss. There was one in 2017 and then one in 2020. And so it is components of those articles that have been redacted. And it's because of the way they did their analysis. It's not actually even the data. It's just how they analyze the data. So the information is still really relevant. The ACHIEVE study is awesome. And it looks like they've released more results. So there might be more to look at than there was last time we talked about it. But it's still, that's still what we're going back to, saying that, patients that don't wear hearing aids are further at risk of cognitive decline than somebody who is wearing hearing aids. And that ACHIEVE study, it shows over a 3-year time period. And that's kind of the groundbreaking, like the mic drop on the research, is that the patients that wore hearing aids had 48% less cognitive decline over 3 years than patients who did not. And that was just one specific cohort of the study. So I'll point that out too. But that research is solid, and that's kind of what we're going back to. We talk to patients about it every day. People have seen articles, and the sensationalized headlines are part of it, which we'll get to here in just a minute about another study that we learned about. But if you see something like that, it doesn't mean that the data is not good. It means that that one specific study had some bad things in their analysis and they took it away, but the heart of the information is still good. And the ACHIEVE study is actually what's newer and better information anyway. So we wanted to bring that up because we've seen that coming all over our audiology internet pages of how this study has been redacted, and there's been a lot of communication about it. So we thought we would just throw that out there while we're talking about research.
Yeah. And so a new research article that we're going to be discussing today is one that was looking at the association between hearing aid use and mortality rates in adults with hearing loss in the United States. And so it was really cool. They used about like almost 10,000 participants, and it was from like a long-term study. I want to say like 2002 to 2012 or something like that. And so they got all this information from a database and used about 10,000 people's information to kind of get these results. And so they started by determining what regular hearing aid use consisted of. And we kind of laughed at this because it makes me laugh. There was never, which is you have hearing loss, but you have never worn a hearing aid. There's non-regular hearing aid use, so you use it less than once a month or you seldom use it. And then they classified regular hearing aid use as any of the following: wearing it at least once a week, wearing a hearing aid at least once a day, wearing it almost always, wearing the hearing aid at least 5 hours a week, or wearing it at least half of the time. And the 5 hours a week is really funny to me because that is absolutely not enough at all.
Yeah. Well, once a week is just a really random, and like, for how long are you wearing it once a week? So of course we can nitpick everything, but this particular study had a lot of sensationalized headlines. One of our patients actually sent it to us, and he sent it from the Wall Street Journal, and it said, "You're less likely to die if you wear hearing aids." And so we're just kind of highlighting how sometimes the headline is not quite what it seems. But I still think this is really good information. And even back to like safety purposes,
100%.
We need to be able to hear.
Yeah. The other interesting thing that I found from this study is that out of the almost 10,000 people that they surveyed, 12.7% of participants were regular hearing aid users. 6.6% were non-regular hearing aid users. And I did the math, and that means 80.7% of participants have never worn a hearing aid. And that is concerning. Those 80%, that's like 8,000 people that are confirmed with hearing loss not wearing a hearing aid. I'm just like, come on, get in here and let's get you fit.
We know that there's a statistic that there's an average of 7 years between when somebody needs a hearing aid and when they actually get it. So if it helps your patients to get hearing aids sooner, maybe tell them they're less likely to die. I mean, that's how this study.
That's what the study says.
How the study rounded out.
And so they were able to find. Well, then my other thing is when they tested for mortality, it looked like you were considered alive if you showed up to your appointment. And so if you didn't show up to your appointment, I think they marked you as deceased.
We're concerned that lost to follow-up and may have been confused with deceased with some of the patients, because do we have that chart that shows the follow-up? It was like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So what happens if you came to the 5 year, 10 year, 15 years, and then you just didn't come back? Did they categorize you as dead?
What if you were busy that day?
Right.
And now you're marked as dead.
Or, over that, longitudinal studies, that's always the problem, right? Is that over a 40-year period or whatever, people might move or relook, people might not come back. So that was one thing that we were kind of wondering about.
That did make me just kind of laugh. I was like, how are you tracking mortality rates? So Dr. Phillips is pulling that study up so you can kind of see what it looks like and where we got it from. And we'll include a link to that as well so that you guys can access it. It's really cool. It's actually like a free article. So sometimes research articles aren't free, but this one is an open access one. So they want the general public to read it and kind of understand what's going on. And so as far as results, what did they find out? First off, that more hearing loss is associated with a higher risk of mortality, which I think kind of makes sense, especially with what we know about cognitive decline and the dementia piece and everything, that the more severe your hearing loss is, the more at risk you are. They adjusted all the factors, including age, demographics, severity, things like that. And they still saw an overall trend of lower risk of mortality in patients with regular hearing aid use compared to non-regular or never. So if you were one of those regular users, you had a higher lifespan, basically. The interesting thing, though, is that they did not find a significant difference between non-regular users and people who never wore them. And so I think that just shows that if you're not wearing it, it's basically like you're doing nothing.
Well, and their buckets of regular use, non-regular use, and not wearing it is kind of strange to me. Just because of how they're defining regular use. But I also think that's important because the patients that we see in front of us that are here trying to do something about their hearing, that are wanting to wear hearing aids, that also says something about them, and that they're motivated, that they want to do better. Those are the kind of patients that live the longest.
Definitely.
Because they're striving to do better all the time.
Yeah, when you see those patients who just come in and they're kind of just doing whatever, not really taking care of the hearing aids, not really wearing them all the time, they're just not motivated to address that issue. And that just kind of, it shows, and that's fine. That's
Yeah.
patient prerogative. I can't force you to put the hearing aid on. I can only
Right.
educate on the benefits of it, which is
But-
that you live longer.
Yes, but between looking at the ACHIEVE study and looking at this study, I think there's a lot of benefits to be learned. And it's also, we see patients who they're self-motivated, they brought themselves in, versus somebody whose spouse brought them in who does not think that they have a problem. So there's a big difference there in that motivation. And ultimately, patients that are motivated to help themselves do better in the long run. They're consistent users. They're less likely to die.
Less likely to die and less likely to get dementia.
Yeah, exactly. So all things good in the hearing aid front. We love research, so we will continue to do some research spotlights. If you find an article or a sensationalized headline that you think is funny, send it to us. The way we got this second study was one of our patients sent the Wall Street Journal article that was like, well, if this is why I'm wearing hearing aids, then okay. So it's out there and people are reading it, but it's kind of funny to dive into it and actually see how they did it and what they looked at and if the headlines were just sensationalized or not. But we'll take this one.
Yeah, I like this one.
We'll take less dementia and less likely to die.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, good information coming out from research. Like Dr. Galloway said, if you have any other ones that you want us to talk about, feel free to send them along. We love just kind of looking at these and figuring out what's going on in the field of audiology. And that helps us learn more too, and just kind of figure out what other people are focusing on. So we'd love to hear from you guys as well.
Yep. So send us your comments, feedback. If you have any other articles you want for us to look at. We will be back next week on Thursday at 12:30 on All Things Odd. Thanks for joining.